Chapter 6206. In a daze, Steve suddenly looked up and saw a surveillance probe hanging in the corner of the ceiling. He immediately knew that he was being manipulated by Charlie again today. Even though he was here, if he turned around and left at this time, the video evidence would be left behind, and Charlie would be offended as well. It's better to go all out and leave the video, and at least take good care of Charlie first. Thinking of this, he simply hesitated and sighed. "Hey! Then I will listen to you and have 2 drinks together." Charlie nodded with satisfaction. "This is right, we are side by side in New York and Canada. The allies who have fought have finally reunited in Orus Hill this time. So they naturally want to have a good drink. It's just that the conditions here are a little rough at Uncle Ju's, so don't mind." How could it be possible? Steve smiled apologetically and said, "It's an honor for me to get invited here because you treat me as a friend." After saying that, he also made up for himself. "Mr. Wade, it's not because of anything else that I wanted to leave just now. I mainly wanted to leave because I feel embarrassed to always ask you to treat me. You treated me last time, so it's logical for me to treat you back." Charlie didn't expose him and said with a smile, "Uncle Ju is treating me today, but it's up to me to treat you. It's okay if you want to return the invitation. You can arrange a meal before you leave. Uncle Ju and I will go there together." Steve wanted to slap himself, but he could only pat his chest and say, "Don't worry, I will give you both a good banquet before leaving the Orus Hill." Charlie invited him to sit down on another seat. Peter took out a bottle of loose white wine without a packaging box, and poured a cup for Charlie and Steve each from a disposable paper cup, and then poured one for himself. Charlie greeted Steve and said, "Uncle Ju's conditions are limited, don't dislike it." No, Steve said quickly. "I don't have high material requirements." Peter asked him with a smile, "What kind of wine does Mr. Rothschild usually drink?" Steve hurriedly said, "Just call me Steve. You don't have to always call me Mr. Rothschild." After finishing speaking, he added, "I usually drink mostly red wine, and occasionally some whiskey." Peter asked again, "How much does a bottle of wine you usually drink cost?" Steve thought for a while. For table wine, the unit price is generally between $10,000 and $50,000 US. For important banquets, the price is usually more than $100,000 US. Peter pointed to the yellow-covered glass bottle of liquor he bought and asked him, "Guess how much this bottle of wine costs?" Steve shook his head. "I usually don't drink Chinese liquor, so I don't know much about the market." Charlie on the side smiled and said, "I want you to guess, not to understand. You need to know how much a bottle of this wine costs." "Is that still called guessing?" Steve quickly said, then, "I guess it's about $3,000. $3,000? Peter shook his head and said with a smile, "It's $7. $7? Steve was stunned and blurted out, "Mr. Ju usually drinks wine for $7? Peter smiled and said, "When I was in the United States, I never drank such cheap wine, but yesterday I casually asked for a bottle in a small restaurant and found that although this wine is cheap, it tastes not bad at all." Steve stared at the glass filled with wine in front of him, swallowed subconsciously, and said nervously, "Before drinking this kind of wine, do I need to do a test to see if there are any problems with the ingredients?" Charlie and Peter looked at each other and smiled, and then said, "Just drink boldly. If anything happens to you, I will take care of it." Charlie also echoed, "Don't worry. If something happens to you if you drink, I will feed you a pill on the spot." Peter smiled and said, "There is only one bottle of wine. The 3 of us will drink it, you should not have any trouble drinking." Steve sighed, "I know Mr. Wade's elixir is not so easy to get." Charlie smiled slightly, "That's not necessarily the case. I have always been generous to my true friends, let alone giving them to you. I don't know how many rejuvenation pills your father took that were several times stronger than those pills I gave away." Steve said with a serious face. Mr. Wade, you know, I have always regarded you as a friend. Charlie smiled and said, Really? Why didn't I feel it? Peter fanned the flames on the sidelines. I guess it's because Steve's friendship is more reserved. Charlie nodded, looked at Steve, and joked. Steve, from now on, you can be more direct in your expressions of friendship. A little more. Steve knew that Charlie was teasing him. So he could only say with a humble face, Don't worry, Mr. Wade, I will definitely pay attention to not being so reserved in the future. After that, he quickly expressed his attitude to Charlie. Mr. Wade, if you have any use for me in the future, just ask. I will do my best.